Hey guys, we are back with a very different kind of review today. We're getting into uncharted territory with this one because it's something that I've never reviewed before, but it's something that I'm pretty familiar with. And if you've been in any way looking at my social media recently, you know that I've very much been ramping up my interest, for better or worse, in Gundam models, so Gunpla. And I used to build tons and tons of models when I was like in high school and college, and then it all sort of dropped off for whatever reason, and now for whatever reason, it's coming back. So we're taking a look today at the P Bandai exclusive Real Grade Tallgeese 3. So we're talking Gundam Wing stuff, Endless Waltz in particular, and that is very much my bread and butter when it comes to Gundam. It's very nostalgic for me, and I love everything about the Tallgeese. So we got this guy here in, honestly, a pretty large format box. Being a P Bandai piece, it does have this very specific style of packaging with the imagery on the front. So you've got the Tallgeese there, you've got some logos down there on the bottom, product shot on the side, and then there's really nothing on the back of this one because, again, it's a P Bandai release. So let's do it. Let's put it together, and then we'll take a look. And here he is out of the box and of course fully assembled. So this is my first real grade model kit, and I am pretty surprised by what this thing can do. I have been, kind of out of the model kit game for a little while, well, a long while, I suppose. And whatever reason, I'm back in, and this thing is definitely something that I've been looking forward to. Tallgeese of any version is something that I have a strong attachment to, so it was really cool to get a chance to take a look at this guy. And special thanks to Bluefin for sending this guy over for review. So I'm going to put links down below to their site, to the P Bandai US site, because there are an absolute ton of P Bandai exclusive model kits up right now, including the master grade counterpart for this particular suit. So be sure to check them out. And I mean, it's just an interesting experience because this guy is, for someone who's coming back into model kits, this is very different. It very much looks like a 1/44 high grade, but it's really not. And it's very much like a master grade, but it's not because, of course, it's smaller. So it's like a mishmash of various scales, which is pretty cool because it also has a really nice price point as well. So let's get started, see what this guy can do. I'll kind of talk about the build as well, at least how I experienced this build, because it was pretty simple. There's really not a whole lot to say except I was able to put it together and I didn't break it. So that's a good win on its own. But there is a lot that goes into putting this thing together, and there's also a lot that goes into the overall articulation here. This thing moves quite a bit more than I ever expected it was going to. So as far as moving this guy around, it was really interesting because as I was building him, I wasn't really sure what he was going to be doing. A lot of it was not very indicative of how well he moved until you finally got through with the entire process. Like when I built the legs, for example, I had no idea what they were going to do until like the last couple of steps, and then it all very much, no pun intended, came together. And a lot of this figure does, well, this kit, I'm probably going to make that mistake a lot, does move around really well. Honestly, I was really surprised with what he's capable of doing. Granted, I am very heavy-handed with this thing because it is not an action figure. It's certainly much more sturdy than what I was used to back when I actually built a lot of these, but it definitely isn't as robust as a figure. So, there's a good chance I'm going to knock something off. So we've got a head that can look up a little bit. Pretty good, honestly. And there's actually an independent piece in there that will move around a little bit, and then you can look down, and then you can rotate side to side. Not necessarily full rotation, but pretty good. The arms actually kind of pop out a bit, and then they go up, and then you can rotate in there. You do have to worry about the boosters, but they can get out of the way and you can do full rotation. The shoulder armor is independently articulated. You've got a bicep swivel in here. There is really ridiculous range on the elbow. I mean, it's so good. It's really nice. And then you've got a ball peg at the wrist. The big thing for this model kit is the arms that come off of the shoulders for the various attachments. So the shield, there's a pivot piece there, there's a pivot there, there's a pivot there, and then there's another pivot at the actual the shoulder itself. The same with the cannon on the other side. So you've got rotation, you've got a ball peg here, then there's a pivot point, then there's another pivot point, and then there's a ball peg at the gun to actually kind of wobble it around a little bit. So most of that is really just to get it into those poses where it's using them, especially the gun, but it works pretty well. Took a little bit of finagling the first time I did it, but otherwise it worked pretty nicely. One of the biggest surprises on this guy is this. The crunch on this thing is pretty crazy. He moves forward really, really, really well, and then he moves backwards a little bit, and then you do have a twist at the waist. It's not necessarily the biggest, but it moves pretty good and enough to be kind of dynamic with it as well. The legs go out. They also will kick forward about almost 90 degrees, and then you can twist in there as well. The knees go back really far. It's not the cleanest cut, obviously, but the way it works, it's almost like a pulley system in there, which is kind of interesting. And then you've got a really, really good rocker at the ankle. There is a little bit of rotation down there, and then you've got your hinge backwards, your hinge forward, and then you've also got a little bit of a toe hinge. What's really interesting is that the feet are basically almost articulated entirely out of the runners. Like as soon as I cut them out, it just started moving on its own because it's almost like a fully formed piece in some way. So there was some really kind of interesting curveballs. There are other things that move on this guy that I'll talk about. There are a lot of boosters on this guy, but the Tallgeese moves really, really well. Again, I'm still kind of heavy-handed with this thing because I'm not used to it, but it's been pretty easy to pose and been pretty easy to move around. Granted, I've knocked some stuff off here and there, but you can pop those back on. That's kind of the good thing about it. Otherwise, though, I was really, really impressed because, again, the build process didn't necessarily tell me this thing was going to have such a wild range until like the last couple steps, and it worked out really well. And of course, it was very simple to put this all together, too. You just watch or read the instructions really, and you'll have a pretty solid time. So I put him together with no real issues, and he moves around pretty well, so I couldn't have done that bad of a job. I'm sure someone will correct me there, but I couldn't have done that bad. Now, aesthetically speaking, that is almost always my main focus when it comes to just about anything I get. But the main focus for this guy was the build process and just the experience, but it culminated in a really fantastic look. And of course, there are a lot of people that could make this kit look so much cooler just because they know more about what they're doing. But for me and my purposes, I had a pretty good time, and I'm really happy with the finished product here. There are definitely things I could have improved upon in terms of just being a little cleaner or, having more experience panel lining at this state in the game. It's been a while since I've pulled out a Gundam marker, but I'm pretty happy with them. I really dig the colors here. The white is not white. It's got a little tinge of kind of cream in it almost, so it's not stark white. And then the blue is incredibly bright and vibrant. And like I said, there is a ton of stuff on this guy that can open up. So the boosters on the back open up to expose the Vernians back there. And these things just look fantastic. There's a ton of detail in there, and they just kind of accentuate how powerful the Tallgeese 3 is, so I really like that. I love everything about this shield. I mean, this is a big characteristic for this particular suit. Of course, there is a way we can change it up, and we're going to talk about that. I mean, the big monster cannon, I did put a few stickers on here, and I did put a few stickers on the suit itself. So like some of these smaller markers, I've got the one for the actual eye, and then I've got, like the ones that say prevent or wind, because I could not put those on there, along with the Tallgeese 3 logo that goes across the armor. But in my kind of looking at the stickers, I didn't really think all of them were necessary. Obviously, it's up to you. You get to do whatever you want. You can go all out, you can go none, or you can just put a few on. And then, of course, I did panel line it a little bit. Sort of okay, I think I did it okay. I definitely have a little room to improve, but I really love the way this thing looks. I mean, it looks very much like it kind of jumped off the screen, but is also very real world, which I also think is another aspect of the real grade that kind of shines through here, because it very much looks like it's something that could exist, although of course we know that it probably never could really, but in the sense of what it looks like a little robot, and I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. Build process, again, lent itself to a very, very nice looking finished product, and I do absolutely dig the head on this thing. It's one of my favorite things about this, because you can pop it off. You can actually pop the head off, or the face rather, and you get a little touch of its Leo upbringings in there. So I dig that. I like that little bonus thing there. They didn't have to do that, I suppose, but it was cool to see it when you're putting it together. There's a sticker for it in there, but it's just a cool looking kit. It was a lot of fun to actually get to touch up all these little details. The stickers weren't too crazy. Granted, I didn't do them all, but I think it looks fantastic. And when you get everything kind of popped open, I mean, you've got the ones here on the skirt pieces as well. There's just so much stuff to open up and make him look look bigger and bulkier and just accentuate the design. So again, fun process that lent itself to a really polished looking kit. And then for some quick size comparisons, just to give you an idea of how big this guy is, here is our Tall Geese 3 real grade in the center with a high grade 144 wing, and then we've got a master grade Sandrock over here. So you can see, these two scale up just fine. They are very much of the same type, but of course, get you an idea of what he is like next to a master grade. It's the only one that I have easy access to at the moment. And then for some other Gundam stuff, here he is with the Death Scythe from the Gundam Universe line. So you can see they do not scale really at all. And then here he is with a Robot Spirit. So that's a, what is that, a Cold Weather GM right there, who is awkwardly posed, but you can see that he is very much on the small side compared to the Tall Geese. And then just for something similar but still very different, here he is, as I make way too much noise picking him up, here he is with a Figuarts Dragon Ball Z. So we've got the Goku figure, so there you get an idea of what he's like next to an actual normal action figure, even though they couldn't be further apart in scale. Now, as far as accessories goes, and of course not talking about the gun, not talking about the shield that we've already kind of touched on briefly, he does have a bunch of stuff. So there are a number of extra hands. So I've had these on him for the majority of the review so far, or well, the entirety. So these kind of splayed finger hands, he's got a set of these. And then you've got a set of just regular fists. Just like that. So standard fists for when he's knocking out the wing or whatever you want to do. But then he's also got a few others. So you've got, to start with, we've got this one right here, which I'm using to hold a beam saber. It's interesting because the hand is actually angled down. So it's got more of an actual sword holding pose. So it's specifically meant for the beam saber. And then you've also got two hands like this that are gun holding hands either side, but they've actually got a slot right here to peg into the gun. So it adds a little bit more stability and just ease of use. So you've got a set of those that are specifically meant to hold the gun. Now he does have other stuff, so other weaponry. He's obviously got a beam saber in his hand, and this has that nice kind of translucent pink plastic. We do get a second one, and we do have a second hilt because these things are actually stored in the shield. So I didn't talk about that yet. The handles are actually stored there, and there's the spot for the other one. And then of course we've got the heat rod here that comes out of the shield, which is one of the more characteristic weapons of the Tall Geese 3, and I really like it. So there's a series of these plates here which culminate in the tip at the end, and you actually pop this one out and then replace it with the whole setup here. And there's a wire that runs through this, which is really, really interesting. Be careful, it's very easy to lose, and it allows it to be a little bendy while still kind of maintaining its shape. It does tend to want to fall apart, at least on me right now, but for the most part it does hang still pretty easily. And it's really nice because it does allow for some flexibility while still kind of maintaining its shape, if that makes any sense. It's still posable while also being kind of rigid at the same time, which does help. And it just looks cool. I mean, it's a really interesting design. It looks very, very nasty, not something you would want to go up against. So he does have all of the kind of telltale characteristic weapons that the Tall Geese 3 should have. So the shield, the heat rod, you've got the gun, and then you've got two beam sabers, but he's also got a smattering of extra hands, and there's just a lot of stuff here for a lot of different poses to utilize all of his arsenal. So overall, yeah, I don't really have a lot to complain about here, if anything, truly. I think he moves really well. Again, much, much more than I expected, especially after getting into the build process. I really didn't know where it was going to take me, but this guy is quite poseable. He looks fantastic. There is a ton of detail on this thing. Granted, you can increase that with some panel lining or some stickers, however you choose, but I think he looks fantastic as it is right off the runners, really. And he comes with a lot of accessories. It's sized really well, and it's an imposing mobile suit. I'm a big fan of the Tall Geese 3, so I was really happy to get a chance to check this one out. Granted, it is something I'm not familiar with. It's still interesting to play around with this thing and understand truly how it works, but for someone who's just getting back into kits, this is definitely something that I would recommend because it has a lot of the best of all worlds, really. It's got nice price point, small size, and then it has a lot of the features of a master grade in terms of that skeleton and just all the stuff that it comes with. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's going to do it for this look at the real grade Tall Geese 3 model kit. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.